Native Americans were the first people on this land. When Europeans first encountered them, they enslaved them, they killed them, and they turned them against each other for their own good. This set a precedent to go on for hundreds of years. When the United States realized that it needed more land, they expanded west and took Native American land. The U.S. made treaty after treaty with Native Americans and failed to respect them. They even moved them from their homelands to Indian Territory. In Indian Territory, they took part of that land and gave it to white settlers coming into the area. Native Americans have long been victims of cultural misappropriation. Cultural misappropriation is the theft of cultural commodities by an outsider for the intent of economic gain or to create a stereotype. Professional sports teams and schools have long used Native American culture as mascots and to show celebrations. The Atlanta Braves and Florida State Seminoles have used the tomahawk chop for years to show either celebrations or school pride. The tomahawk chop misappropriates Native American culture by presenting the Native American as a caricature by either chopping down their enemy or scalping them, showing them as savages, not peaceful. The Cleveland Indians is another controversial professional team. The name Indian was first coined by Christopher Columbus when he first reached the Americas, and he called the natives living in the Bahamas Indians because he thought he reached the West Indies, instead of calling them Americans or Native Americans. This is not the only controversial thing that the Cleveland Indians do. They used to have a teepee in the outfield, signifying that all Indians lived in teepees, although many of them lived in wooden homes or mud structures. The Cleveland Indians have recently announced that they will be dropping the name Indian as their mascot and finding a new one. The Washington football team, formerly known as the Washington Redskins, recently announced that they would be dropping the name Redskin as their nickname. This is after backlash from the Native American community and others. This had many implications. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Union High School, formerly known as the Union Redskins, announced that they would be dropping the name Redskin as their nickname too. The word Redskin is a derogatory word used by non-natives to show the color of their skin and natives as a lesser of a person. This movement of appropriation for Native American culture is sweeping across the country. This movement shows respect and dignity to the Native Americans, and soon Native Americans will be shown in the true sense of who they are and the proud people that they are. Professional sports teams are not the only industry that is using cultural misappropriation. The music industry has a history of using cultural misappropriation in music. In the 1820s and 1830s, white performers were painting their faces black and performing skits and songs that used African American songs and exaggerated their gestures, accents, and dance. This was called blackface minstrelsy. This is one of the most popular forms of music for the time and inspired many songs in the American Civil War. Blackface minstrelsy carried over into Native American culture. The act of becoming Native American through musical performance is called singing redface. Singing redface is very popular. Popular songs like What Makes the Red Man Red. In this picture, there are 6 men sitting on the ground, Indian style, beating on their drums with their hands instead of mallets like Indians would have done. They have feathers in their hair, long black dark hair which is braided. They have red skin and large noses and are sitting in front of teepees on the ground. This is just one of many examples of singing redface in American popular music. Other examples include I'm Indian Too by Annie Oakley in the musical Annie Get Your Gun, and Indian Giver by Antoinette Funcella. Indian Outlaw by Tim McGraw was written in 1994. It was part of his second album, Not a Moment Too Soon. The song was a hit. It rose up to number 8 on the country singles chart. Tim McGraw was born in Louisiana and now lives in Nashville, Tennessee. This song was very controversial for many reasons. There were radio stations that would refuse to play it in Minnesota, and radio stations in Orange County that could not get enough of it and looked at it as another country song. Native Americans were split on the song. Some Native Americans loved it, and it was the most popular song on their reservation. Other Native Americans opposed the song, like Chief Principal the Oklahoma Cherokees, Wilma Mankiller, and the American Indian movement. Tim McGraw was a little taken back by the pushback that he received on the song. He said he was a bit flustered by all the fuss and never considered it offensive, only fun. This song is an example of singing redface. Tim McGraw was impersonating a Native American who is half Cherokee and half Choctaw. He references Native culture multiple times throughout the song. He describes a medicine man, a hickory bow and arrow, a Chippewa girlfriend, a tom-tom, a wigwam, a headband, the chief, and a teepee. These are examples of cultural confusion. Cultural confusion happens when there are false stories told year after year after year, and people start to believe that they are true. Cherokees never lived in teepees. Cherokees lived in houses made of woven saplings, plastered with mud, and roofed with poplar bark. In the summers, they lived in open-air dwellings roofed with bark. They also never wore headbands. Cherokees wore feathers in their hair or a distinct Cherokee turban. Cherokees also did not use a bow and arrow to hunt. While hickory bows still might have been in use, this was very unlikely. The use of firearms became increasingly present in Native American lives. By the late 1640s, many tribes have acquired a supply of French firearms. He also would not have played a tom-tom. A tom-tom originally is a Hindi word. They are better known as a holly in Cherokee, or drum in English. Drums were played for ceremonial dances or celebrations or healings. The Indian outlaw rides off with his Chippewa girlfriend on his pony double. In the music video, Tim McGraw rides off on an Indian motorcycle with the girl he meets. The motorcycle is ironically used for the song title and to represent the outlaw himself. The motorcycle is also supposed to represent a horse that he would ride as a Cherokee and Choctaw. The Indian logo on the motorcycle shows the Native American wearing a headdress. Cherokees did not wear headdresses. They traditionally would wear a feather or a turban. There is a long way to go for Native Americans in American music to have idealized sympathy. Idealized sympathy is the perfect harmony of agreeing or naturally existing between persons of like taste or opinion, the fact or power of sharing the feelings of another. Sympathetic songs that portray Native Americans as noble savages can be harmful to Native Americans in the long run. The song may be promoting Native Americans, but the songs are still portraying indigenous people as savages or uncivilized. American popular music has long used cultural misappropriation in their music to benefit economically. Singing redface and playing Indian is still a problem. There is lots of cultural confusion in music and will continue to be until the music industry cannot make money using cultural misappropriation anymore.